This next story is weird, and I'm not able to find the resources that I had on it, but not because of any sort of cover-up. I kind of knew that was going to be the case when I started looking for it again, because it was hard to find in the first place. Now, I gotta tell you a little bit about myself. I used to be 10 toes into the conspiracy world. I used to believe everything. You getting me now as a skeptic is a sharp turn from where I was 10 years ago, maybe even less than that, maybe like 6-7 years ago. I used to believe all of it. I used to be a 9/11 truther. I used to believe in, the coming apocalypse. Y2K, definitely I did. 2012, I was already kind of getting out of the whole thing. I was definitely a 9/11 truther. I definitely believed all the conspiracies about George Bush stealing the election and the war for the oil and trying to build a pipeline, and that's why he was going to invade Afghanistan and Iraq and do all this stuff. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia was like this huge thing. There is no exit plan, all of that nonsense. There is no exit plan, but you know what I mean? Like that whole overriding conspiracy that it was our way to Christianize and conquer the Middle East. None of that stuff's true. When I was a kid, when the last few months of Bill Clinton's presidency, I believed that Bill Clinton was going to declare martial law and he wasn't going to step down as president. He was going to set up these camps and he was going to take all the Christians and make us have the mark of the beast and all this stuff. Totally believed that when I was 17 years old. As George Bush's presidency started coming to an end, I'm like, there's no way he's leaving power. He's going to seize power, and he's going to do all this stuff, and he's going to throw us in camps. I didn't believe he was the Antichrist, but he's going to throw us in camps. By the time Obama was starting to step down, I started seeing all that, like, he's not going to step down, and he's going to cause a civil war. And at that point, I think this is the difference between myself and a lot of other conspiracy theorists. At that point, I had learned my lesson. After Y2K, and after all these other doom predictions, when 2012 was rolling around, I'm like, nothing's going to happen. Because I'd already lived through like 10 apocalypses. That's why when I hear stuff about Trump, and I'm like, I've been through this. I'm an old man at this point. I've followed all of this stuff. All of the argument, oh, he stole the presidency. I heard all that with Bush. And it led all the way up. Every day they talked about he stole the presidency. It was illegal. He shouldn't, Gore won, all that stuff. And then 9/11 happened. And since people didn't automatically trust Bush already, or because they didn't trust Bush already, when that happened, they're like, oh, he was behind it. It was an inside job. I was 100% a 9/11 truther. Absolutely believed in things like... I didn't believe in the laser beams blowing up the buildings or the hologram planes, but I did believe in the explosions inside. I believed mostly that George Bush let it happen. He knew that the planes were coming and he didn't do anything so he could enact his great Christian plan to purge the Middle East of everyone who's not Jewish or Christian. Absolutely. I turned away from that because I was investigating it on 9/12, like a lot of people. And I was a big fan of InfoWars back in the day. It was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. You were getting this immediate information. It fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And I investigated for years and years and years, and always the linchpin was Building 7. And then I started seeing videos from the other side of Building 7, the building that had no structural damage whatsoever. There's videos that show the other side of Building 7, huge gash in it from falling debris from the towers. And then the video where they show Building 7 falling like a controlled demolition. You may not know this, that's an edited video. They always show you the same video where it just pancakes down. There's videos out there that show the whole sequence of events. There's a small structure on top of Building 7, and that collapses first, and then it starts collapsing. So that structure on top fell down, and the building already had a huge gash in it, and once that structure fell down, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. It collapsed. Whenever you see 9/11 truther videos, they cut out the scene where the first structure falls down. And I've talked about this on another episode. I know the government lies to me. That's just what governments do. It's how they function. It's not good or bad, but that's how they function. I didn't expect the conspiracy theorists to lie to me, but once I realized that they were cherry picking their facts as well, I was like, well, they're not believable either. If they were saying everything hinges on Building 7, and that was fake, then I went back with a more critical eye and looked at all this other footage and started to look at, yes, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, but it weakens it. And all of these other facts. Before that I was like, popular science, they don't know what they're talking about. No building has ever been brought down by fire. I am far more skeptical now than I was then. I attribute that to a couple different things. One is just looking into the facts more, having a more critical eye when I look at anything. This is going to sound funny, and this is a huge plug. My favorite podcast of all time, Parapod, is a podcast with two British comedians. One believes everything, the other one's a skeptic. And it was interesting to see stuff that I believed in being with a skeptic kind of pissing it away in such a funny, entertaining way. It also made me go, maybe I'm mistaken on some of these beliefs that I have. I'm not a proponent of someone who says you can never change your mind, because my mind has been changed by facts. My mind has been, I've moved back and forth on the political scale. I've moved back and forth on all sorts of issues because the facts change, or I get a new set of facts, or I've just grown as a person and don't feel the same way. So I wanted to do that introduction because, like I said, I was totally deep into conspiracy theories. When back in 2010, I used to spend all my time researching this stuff. Back in 2010, I came across a website that was titled something to the point of The Plan to Take Over America. It was from a Norwegian group, some sort of paramilitary group based out of Norway. And they had a map of the United States, and you could click on each individual state, and some states were broken up into zones, and it would tell you what the plan was, how they were going to conquer these areas. And I lived in California at the time, and California was like 30% nuked, rest of the survivors rounded up into camps. And then I'm checking like Nevada, and I'm checking Utah, and they're like, Utah, massive exposure to radiation, no survivors. And it was a very detailed map. And I'm reading this and I'm like, holy shit, I just stumbled across this thing. I don't even remember where I found it. I just, like I said, used to spend all my time doing this stuff. And I started to share it. With people. Back then, I spent a lot of time on the website Godlike Productions, GLP, godlikeproductions.com. It's a conspiracy website. They're complete nuts. And it was so funny to watch them fall apart after 2012 because, again, like I said, I was pulling out of that. I went back there about the week 2 and the week after 2012 just to watch everyone freak out. But I shared it with some people on there, and I tried checking my Godlike Productions history, but I had changed accounts, and there was nothing there. See if I could find the original link. The reason why this story is interesting, I remember this stuff very clearly. Around 2010, there was a comet, you may remember, Elenin. Elenin was a comet that at the time, in the conspiracy community, people were like, this is going to hit the planet. This is going to cause massive destruction. And it's going to, the New World Order is planning. I believed all that stuff. Anyways, I still believe that there are private groups that want to put their rule on people at large, but I don't believe in like a single group now. But anyway, so the New World Order was planning all this, and they were going to outlive the destruction, and then anyone who was alive, they were going to take their slaves. Elenin was coming in, and I was freaking out. I thought, oh my god, this comet's going to hit. It's going to destroy everything. And what was interesting was the Plan to Take Over America, that website, a key component of it was Comet Elenin, so it was even feeding more into my paranoia. You would click on states, and it would say, this state will be wiped out due to the tidal waves by Comet Elenin. This state will be devastated by shock waves when Comet Elenin hits. Like, it was all built into that. And so what the website was putting forward was, after the Comet Elenin hit us, this private army was going to then, their first thing was they were going to attack and then invade America. They saw that as the biggest threat. They saw that after the comet hits, we would either rebuild the old world order, or we could take out America and rebuild the New World Order. And I was looking at all these states, and I was like, oh my god, like, where's safe to go? Like, obviously I couldn't go anywhere. But I was freaking out. I was actually talking to friends about it. I was like, what state do you live in? I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, I was that level of doom guy. The interesting thing about it was that in the early summer, maybe around May or June of 2011, a message popped up. And I know you're thinking, Jason, how do you remember all these details, but you can't even find the site? And fair enough. I'm not making it up, but you have to take my word for it. If you don't take my word for it, that's fine. If you think I'm just making it up, that's totally fine. I'm not, but I would understand if you said, nah, he's just riffing. Fair enough. It was around May or June of 2011, and the site got updated. And it said, warning, Comet Elenin is breaking up. May have been taken out by alien spacecraft. We will revisit the new plan in July. I was like, what? It's weird. So it was like they still wanted to go on with the plan, but the comet was now breaking up. They had realized there was a structural integrity issue, and the comet wasn't going to impact the way they wanted it to, or the way they thought they were going to. So Comet Elenin is breaking up. Possible extraterrestrial intervention. We will come back to this plan in July and figure out what we're going to do. I was like, I'm paranoid still. July rolls around. And July 22nd in Norway was one of the worst mass shootings. I personally think it's one of the worst mass shootings ever. And that was when that scumbag, Anders Breivik, went to a summer camp and shot a bunch of kids. And I remember reading in the newspaper how kids were like, 'cause it was on an island. First he set off a couple bombs in the capital also. Then he went to this island and he was shooting up this summer camp, and kids jumped into the water and were trying to swim away, and he shot them. What a fucking scumbag. And do you know, because of the prison system over there, he's sitting in an apartment better than mine? He's in there for life, but... Anyways, Andrew Breivik shot 77 people. And the site, like I said, was a Norwegian. It was based in Norway, but it was all in English. And the shooting was also in Norway. So maybe like a couple days after that happened, the site got updated. I checked it regularly. I was terrified. And the website got updated and it said, listen, this was all a troll. This was all a joke. We have nothing to do with the shooting that happened in Norway. Our hearts are broken over it. This was all just a joke. We are going to just shut it down. None of this was serious. Our hearts and prayers go out to the people involved. So I thought, that's interesting. Like, okay, well, I mean, I guess I'm not paranoid anymore. It was all a troll. The plan to take over America and the fact that the comet was going to hit and the reason why they were going to... It was very, very detailed. But again, trolls can do that. Trolls can be very detailed. And so eventually the website, I just kind of was like, oh, it's a troll. I kind of stopped going there. A couple months later, same year, 2011, August, September, Comet Elenin broke up in deep space. It fragmented. It fell apart. Just like the website said. I've never been able to figure out how they guessed that. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.